but are in situations that they're one play away from being in the game. Some added experience, which was really good. A lot of players got some rest and recovery time that had, nicked up injuries, nagging type injuries that I think the time off was probably very beneficial. So all in all, I think we got to spend some time on future opponents. So I think it was a very productive week for us. This is often a big game for us. LSU game's always a big game. It's turned into kind of a rivalry game because of the success of the two programs. And I don't think this year is really any different, regardless of record. LSU has a lot of really, really good players. They have a lot of talent on their team. And these guys are very capable of being one of the best teams in the country because of the talent that they have. And I think our players really need to respect that and make sure that we go into this game paying great attention to detail in terms of playing with more discipline and being able to execute the way we need to execute to play against these kinds of football players. LSU has really good players on offense. I mean, they got some really good receivers, two really good running backs. I know they had a lot of changes in the offensive line, but those guys have improved and are playing extremely well. Their tight end, Eric Gilbert, is probably as fine a young tight end as we've seen for a long, long time. Terrence Marshall is a mismatch issue at wide receiver. The quarterback is questionable and has been hurt, which I think has hurt them, playing a less experienced guy, but very talented guy. So we're going to see talented players regardless, and we're going to have to play extremely well. Defensively, I know that, they've scored a lot of points on offense. And defensively, they've got some really, really talented players, very talented guys in the secondary, very athletic up front, create a lot of negative plays. So they're always good on special teams. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for, this team, the players on their team, and what they're capable of. So our players need to be very much ready for a very tough physical game that's going to take great execution to be able to be successful in. Just to give you an update on Trey Sanders, he underwent successful surgery. Our doctors and medical staff, we've got him at UAB, have been on top of this. We expect him to have a full recovery, but I do think that he is probably out indefinitely. There's no real timetable, but he's going to be okay, but pretty serious stuff.
Okay, Coach, we'll start with Michael Casagrande with AL.com.
Yeah, Nick, just going back 2 years ago to LSU when Mac Jones came into the game for one play when Tua went down. What do you remember about that moment? How did he handle it, and what did it say about him and his ability to step into moments that are pretty big?
Well, I don't really remember that much about it, to be honest with you. We're kind of looking forward, not looking backwards. But Mac has done a good job. He's developed. He's got a lot of experience. He's certainly not the same guy now as he was then. So, this is an athletic a team as we've played against all year, especially with what they can do in the back end and the secondary. So this is going to be a real challenge for Mac and our receivers and our up front people to be able to execute the way we need to.
John Zener with the AP.
Coach, I know that number one ranking doesn't mean anything in November, but can it be a test of maturity and focus for your players? It's just one more thing that could distract them if they let it, or is that just old hat at Alabama?
Well, I do think that you made a great statement there. It means nothing at all right now. And I think especially in this year, because it's very, very difficult, even at this point in the season, to know who has really established them as the most dangerous teams in the country on a consistent basis. We have conferences that have played 1 game, conferences that have played 3 games, conferences that have played more games than we've played. So I think it's very, very difficult to be able to determine that. So I think it's even more meaningless this year than ever before. But I do think you bring up a good point that if people get satisfied or complacent because of where they're ranked right now, that can affect their focus and ability to continue to do the things they need to do to improve. I've always said this before, you've heard it before, complacency creates a blatant disregard for doing what's right. So that's something that our players are going to have to show maturity and understanding that it's not where you are right now, it's where you finish that counts, and if you're going to finish the right way, you need to continue to try to improve and do the things that we need to do to execute even more consistently on a week-to-week basis.
Okay, we'll go with Brett Hudson.
Well, I don't know that we have progressed that much from last year to this year. I think we've progressed a lot throughout this year, which is what I'm focused on, and we don't really make a lot of comparisons to, okay, what were we doing last year, what were we doing this year? I mean, we're trying to take the players that we have right now and do what we need to do to get them to be able to play their best so that we can stop the run and we can read, run, pass, and pressure the quarterback when we need to and convert pass rush. So, and I think we've made progress so far this year. And we want to continue to try to make progress. And they've got some really talented backs, and they've been able to run the ball and create balance on offense. So it's going to be important for us to be able to stop the run so that we can create some positive down and distance situations for ourselves.
We'll go to Charlie Potter.
Hey, Coach. Last week you mentioned Dylan Moses' leadership and how that's kind of coming along. Just his play on the field, how have you seen that improve over the course of the season?
Well, I think Dylan has played better and better as the season has gone along. I think, he probably had to get his sea legs back under him early in the season after missing one entire year of football. But I think he's much more confident now. I think he feels, better about the role that he's in terms of assuming command and leadership and making calls and trying to help other players play better. So I'm very pleased with the way he's progressed throughout the year.
We'll go to Aaron Suttles.
Nick, I wonder what kind of progress you've seen from Jace McClellan and Roydale Williams from when they arrived on campus, and have they progressed to the point where they can play winning football and contribute this season?
We think so. So we've been encouraged by both of those guys. They haven't gotten a lot of opportunity, so far, but we certainly feel like they can contribute, and they're very capable, and now they're going to get a little more opportunity as running backs and in some situations on special teams.
Go with Chris Walsh.
How has Patrick Surtain handled being sort of that veteran leader of the secondary this season?
Well, I think Pat's done a great job. He leads by example. He always, practices the way you're supposed to practice, takes coaching the way you're supposed to take coaching. I think he respects the critical eye. He wants to be a good player. So he wants you to tell him how he could do things better. And he's very committed to being a good player. And I think he's not really a vocal guy a lot. But in a quiet way, he impacts everybody in a very, very positive way because of the example that he sets. And he is somebody that I wish every guy on our team would try to emulate in terms of the character that he has as a person and the competitive character he demonstrates every day in preparing for a game as well as how he plays in a game.
We'll go to Alex Scarborough with ESPN.
Hi, Nick. I don't know if you've had the time to sit down and watch Tua play at all this year, but just wondering what your early thoughts are on the early start to his career with the Dolphins.
Well, I really haven't had a chance to watch him, so it's not fair for me to comment. I can only tell you we're rooting for him, and there's no one in the world that I would rather see have success because of the adversity that he had to overcome to come back from an injury and the great character that he showed here as a player and a competitor and a person, and the ambassador that he is for this program in terms of how he projects himself. So there's no one rooting for him more than me. I'm just sorry that I don't get to watch games on Sunday.
We'll go with Tony.
Coach, I've got two. First off, do you have an update on Brian Robinson? I know he was a little bit nicked up. And then second of all, What did you address your players in terms of handling the bye week, in terms of safety precautions, in terms of contracting COVID? Was there any guidelines you passed on to them?
Yeah, B-Rob is fine, so I don't think there's any issues there. Yes, basically, we test our players just every day, as you know. And really the guidelines that we had for our players is, look, our players have been here for a long time and they've been working for a long time. And I didn't really want them to go anywhere and leave their bubble, but I didn't have the heart to tell them that they couldn't go home and see their family. So the one place our players were allowed to go was home, and that was it. If you weren't going home, then you needed to stay here and be in your bubble. And the protocol that we took is we had a meeting with every player who was leaving, reinforced social distancing and the things that they needed to do. We gave them a packet of sanitary things that would help them be able to do that, whether it's mask, hand sanitizer, whatever it might be. And then we set up video conferences with each family that they were going to go visit. And we also wanted them to really understand the importance of being able to control, the bubble that the players would be in when they were at home, because players feel comfortable around their family, but you also don't know, where the family members are going, coming and going to. So we really tried to educate the players and their families on what needed to be done, and tried to give them all the things that we could in terms of apparatus, so that they would have the things that they needed to be able to stay safe.
Got time for 2 more quick ones. We'll go with Stephen James.
Hey, Coach, LSU is usually a team that takes a lot out of you, both physically and emotionally. What's been the progression of the discipline on this team?
Well, I think that's something that we need to continue to work on. This usually is an emotional game, so players need to play with emotion but not be emotional. It always is a physical game, which is what we expect. Players are going to be able to have to keep their poise and their focus, and they need to practice that way and develop those habits in practice so that they can carry them over to the game.
Okay, we'll finish up with James.
Yeah, you mentioned Eric Gilbert in your opening statement, and he's become a significant part of their offense as a receiver and a blocker. What does a guy with his physical traits, how does that affect your defensive game plan?
Well, it affects, I think, tight ends are always a tough, when you have really good skill players outside and you have a really good tight end, it's almost like you're defending 4 wide receivers all the time. And I think that's probably the case, with LSU and the players they have, because they have really good players, and they flex him out a lot, and he's very capable as a receiver, but he's also very capable as a blocker when they keep him in the core. So this creates significant issues in terms of matchups, I think, when you have this kind of tight end that can be vertical down the field. He's a really good receiver, but he's also a very good blocker.
All right, Coach, thank you. That's all the time.
Thank you.